my name's Jag, and 6 years ago, after the loss of a very close friend who died by suicide, some friends and I realized there's a gap in society when it comes to supporting people with mental health, reducing the stigma, encouraging people to reach out for help. And so what we did was we created an event called Breaking the Silence. And the goal of the event is to reduce the stigma associated with mental health and also promote the resources that are available to those in need. And so it's called Breaking the Silence. It's a mental health awareness run and walk. And it's really about engaging society in a conversation about mental health so that we can all recognize the signs if others are struggling, or recognize signs within so that we actually reach out for help when we need it. When it comes to stigma, the World Health Organization believes it's the #1 barrier that prevents people from reaching out for help. How do we overcome stigma, or how do we battle stigma? That's multifaceted, but I believe the more we understand how powerful stigma is, the more we understand how important it is to overcome that, whether that be our own internal struggles with stigma or that as a community at large. And so it's really important to understand a lot of people don't reach out for help because of stigma. And if we understand that, we're more likely to reach out to those individuals, understanding that stigma is significant. But when it comes to reaching out for those people, that conversation can be difficult. I've been there a number of times where I'm concerned about a friend, but I really don't know how to have that conversation. I don't know what's going to come of that conversation, how receptive that individual is going to be, if it's going to damage our relationship. Because as guys, society perceives us as strong, and that's both physically or mentally. And so if I have that conversation with an individual, are they going to perceive themselves as weak, or that I see them as being weak? And so it's a delicate balance between being supportive and then pushing people away. And so when it comes to having that conversation, I think you need to educate yourself so that you feel more comfortable having that conversation, confident making that phone call, or connecting with a friend face to face. When it comes to education, there's so many different theories out there, knowledge-based practices. One of the great ones I've seen is through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. They have one called the Mental Health First Aid, and it's really a tool designed to support you as a layperson to have that conversation with an individual if you feel concerned for them. And so it really is an opportunity for you to follow a plan, and it's called ALGES, is really the acronym, but it's a tool that allows you to follow a few steps, and they don't have to be in order. But if you have a conversation with somebody and you have a plan in the back of your head, you feel a little bit more confident about having that conversation. So it's about understanding how to start that conversation off. I think that's huge, but it's also allowing that individual some time to respond. And so pauses can be awkward, but through some of this training and other training out there, you feel okay allowing the individual some time to talk. And so that's key. Another part is also understanding yourself. If you're not taking care of yourself, then it's hard to take care of others. So all of that's part of the plan. So once again, that one's the Mental Health First Aid through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. There is a fee to take that course, but there's lots of free resources on that website that actually provide you with some of these resources on having that conversation.
Hi folks, my name is Malik Dadwal. I'm a mental health therapist from Edmonton. I've been working in this field for about 8 years, dating all the way back to my undergrad from the University of Alberta. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to volunteer and work with various different counseling, crisis intervention, and peer support services in various different roles and capacities. And recently, I just completed my master's in counseling psychology. I'd like to give a quick shout out to the Girl to Girl Young Women's Empowerment Group for taking this initiative and also giving me the opportunity to talk about mental health, and specifically mental health as it pertains to males. I think we've begun to scratch the surface about men's mental health, but there's still a lot of work that we can do to help break this stigma. One of the biggest barriers that men face when dealing with their mental health is the societal norm that has been widely accepted over the years. Men are often told to man up or put their big boy pants on, but phrases like this feed the stigma that is related to men's mental health. Phrases like this start early and they create the mindset that causes more damage to males than any other health concern that men face. There's so many myths that are related to men's mental health that have become commonplace or the norm that are completely false. We're taught growing up that depression or other mental health issues are a sign of weakness and that showing weakness is not considered to be masculine. As men, we're taught that we should be able to control our emotions and not let them get to us. We should be able to be strong enough to just snap out of it on our own and not let these emotions control us. We're taught that feeling is not manly. From a young age, we're not taught how to deal with these emotions, and this negative normal leads us to mask these emotional problems in many different forms. We see this masking through risky behaviors, through substance use such as alcohol or drugs, or through simply bottling them up or expressing them in different ways such as anger, aggression, irritability. One significant statistic that has always stood out to me is that among Canadians of all ages, 4 out of 5 suicides are male. I think one of the most important resources that can be implemented in schools or in other settings is the creation of safe spaces for men to talk about their feelings, knowing that their self-worth is not based on their productivity. It's not based on how macho they are. It's not based on how well you can hide or mask your emotions. Emotions are loud. Emotions want to be heard. So as men, we need to create a space to talk about these emotions. By creating safe spaces, we perpetuate the norm that men do have emotions and that we are not alone. You are not alone. It may seem like an uphill battle to counteract such a widely accepted social norm, but we have to start and continue this battle if we want to begin to change this false social norm. By promoting the normalization of talking about emotions, we open so many other doors. We create a space where men can explore and learn about other men's experiences. We create a space where men can explore and learn about healthy coping mechanisms. We create a space where men learn and explore that mental health concerns can manifest themselves in many different areas of their life, and they're not necessarily the typical symptoms that we think about when we think about depression, anxiety, or other mental health concerns. And most importantly, we create a norm that reaching out for help is acceptable and it is normal. We've only begun to scratch the surface in dealing with men's mental health, but it's important to remember that regardless of what gender you identify with, we all have mental health, and it's important that we all work towards normalizing taking care of our mental health like we've normalized taking care of our physical health. We all have mental health, and our mental health is important. This pandemic hasn't been easy for anyone. Everywhere we turn, we're faced with a barrage of uncertainty, and all of us have had to change our lifestyles and our daily routines to a certain extent. All these changes have had negative effects on our mental health. Feeling overwhelmed, feeling anxious, feeling stressed. All these emotions are completely normal in these times. These are unprecedented times. Even recent studies have shown that individuals dealing with mental health concerns, isolation, or substance use concerns has increased significantly during this pandemic. Although it may be difficult to see, as we tackle this uncertainty on a day-to-day basis, it's important to remember that you are not alone. We are not alone. This new normal has been difficult for everyone, and it's caused stress for everyone. And it's even more important in these times of quarantine and self-isolation to remember to balance social connection, even if that means using technology to our advantage. Due to health restrictions and the important guidelines in place, it may seem that we're more isolated now than ever before, but we live in a world of technology. It's important to remember that a friend, a loved one, or even a mental health professional is simply a phone call, a text, or a video service away. The first step is often the hardest step, but it's the most important, and you'd be surprised to see what happens when you reach out to a loved one. When it comes to men's mental health, men, even before the pandemic, were less likely than other genders to reach out for mental health support. So this perceived isolation has become even more significant and had even more negative effects on men. On top of that, if you factor in the societal narrative that men are usually the breadwinners, and a lot of men's self-worth and self-esteem is tied in with their productivity, shutdowns at work or reduced work hours have also had a negative effect on men's mental health. Now more than ever, it's important that we talk about our mental health and we create that space and use the online resources to our advantage. Even though we may be sitting at home more often, this gives us the opportunity to take care of ourselves, something that we often forget to do in our fast-paced lives. Even with the men's group that I help facilitate, we've made the transition over from being an in-person group to an online group. And although it's not ideal, and human nature is to crave that face-to-face connection, even creating that space in an online world to talk and connect can have a really powerful impact on discussing and dealing with mental health concerns.